Welcome to the Talent Development Hot Seat Podcast. I'm your host, Andy Storch, and I'm excited that you're joining me today for another great episode and conversation to help you up your game and improve your capabilities in the world of talent development. And today we're talking all about building a learning culture as well as what we see going on in the talent development world. My guest today is Damon Lembi, who is a two-time best-selling author, the host of the Learn It All podcast, and CEO of LearnIt, a live learning platform that has upskilled over 2 million people. And full disclosure, also a sponsor and supporter of this podcast. Drawing from his prior baseball career, Damon brings an athlete's perspective to leadership. And through his journey, he has gained invaluable insights into what helps organizations grow, how great leaders learn, and why Learn It All companies outpace their competitors every time. I last had Damon on this show 2 years ago, amazingly. Episode number 397 was called The Learn It All Leader with Damon Lembi. It came out in May 2023, 2 years ago. And since then, Damon has become a friend and supporter. He sponsored our podcast and the show, and someone I greatly admire in the space of talent development, who talks to lots of people and usually has a really good idea of what's going on. So excited to have him back on the show today. Damon, welcome back to the podcast.
Andy, it's an honor to be here a second time. And for all you listeners, please don't listen to my first interview. That was when I was first getting started. So I appreciate Andy giving me that opportunity, and he really motivated me to do more. So I'm thrilled to be here today.
I love that, and I think you said that that was the first podcast interview you ever did, and then now you've done tons more since then, right?
Yeah, see, the truth of the matter is, I grew up, I was a baseball player, so I did tons of interviews on baseball about my games and in college and everything. But it was my first interview, podcast interview about L&D, even though I've been in the industry for 30 years. And so I was really nervous, but Andy was cool. And so here I am. I've probably been on done about 100 interviews since, and at Learn It on the Learn It All podcast, I've done 160 episodes. So thank you for the first opportunity, and I think I've hopefully greatly improved. So I'm excited about our conversation today.
I love it. You have really
And
jumped
I'm
in.
glad we're buddies, by the way, too. You know,
I
we
am
met in
too.
New Orleans for the first time, and now we
That's right.
talk a lot. So it's been a great relationship.
Yeah, we met in person at the ATD conference in New Orleans last year. You sent a couple of your colleagues to our think tank conference in November, and today we're talking about building a learn it all culture. We also have a guest host with us today. My daughter Lucy is back. She's been on the podcast in the past a couple times, and she's popping in today to ask a couple questions, I think, right, Lucy?
Yes, I am.
So take it
Well,
away.
the nice thing about having Lucy as a guest, as a host, Lucy is 11. My daughter is named Lucy, and she's 7. So I will probably be able to get my wife and kids to listen to this episode for the first time ever.
Yeah, I don't like listening to his episodes, only the ones with me on it. So, that's just how it is.
Yep.
Let's do it, Lucy.
All
What do you
right.
got
So,
for me?
okay. Gonna get you a few questions. So, this is a script that was, well, not a script, but this is like stuff that I was asked to say, not stuff that I would normally say, but yeah, let's just, are you ready? More things? All right. So, like, what's your background? How did you get into like L&D and like L&D space?
Lucy, that's a wonderful question. Never in my wildest dreams did I think I'd end up in the L&D space. Like I mentioned earlier, growing up, I wanted to be a professional baseball player. After high school, I got drafted actually by the Atlanta Braves, but my parents were really cool. They said, "Look, you can do whatever you want to do. You can go the minor league baseball route, or you can go to Pepperdine on a full baseball scholarship. We'll support you any way you want to do, anything you want to do." I chose the route of going to college, and it was a great leadership lesson for me because the coach there, Andy Lopez, who I'm still friends with, said, "Hey, we're going to win the College World Series," which was a moonshot goal. I got hurt at Pepperdine. I left. Lucy, they won the World Series that year. I played at Arizona State. I got drafted again out of junior college. I had to go to junior college for a year. I had a great career at Arizona State. I hit a home run in the College World Series. My wife likes to say that's your glory days. I'm ready to continue on with my baseball career. Sitting in my hotel room, waiting to get the call to be drafted. I didn't get drafted. So at 22 years old, 14 years now from you, gosh, 11 years, my math's bad. My baseball career ended. So I've had to figure out what am I going to do with the rest of my life. I knew I could be good at something, but I didn't know if my skills were transferable. My family had a big real estate business. I was kind of intimidated, didn't want to go into there, but my dad was starting this computer training company called LearnIt. I took a job there as a receptionist, and that was June of 1995, 30 years ago. And like I said, never in my wildest dreams, my entire career, I went from teaching classes to sales to eventually becoming the CEO, probably 5 years into it. And here I am. And Learn It evolved from just computer training to now mainly focusing on human skills, I like to call them. And that's what we've been doing all these years. And so I kind of fell into it, but I actually love it.
Wow, that's so like you never thought that that would like be your thing, and now it's like your thing. But like it's good, it's not bad. But like you were drafted into the MLB?
Yeah, can you believe it?
Wow. Why were you not
Twice.
drafted into the MLB?
I wasn't as good of a baseball player as
I do think your dad looks a little bit like Ryan Sandberg, though.
he was my favorite player.
Yeah, well,
So
that's something. Good
let's
job.
something.
Good job for
Let's
looking
get
like
back to
somebody.
let's get back to
Thank
Okay,
you,
yeah,
Lucy.
anyways, more questions. So,
Yeah.
um, so what are some of like the biggest shifts and trends that you're seeing like with talent development space?
I think some of the biggest trends in the talent development space that I'm seeing these days is obviously there's a lot of uncertainty in the market. And so companies are going through layoffs, they're going through a lot of changes. And even with that, sometimes the budgets get cut for learning and development, which I think people should actually double down on learning and development because if companies are letting people go, those tasks and responsibilities, that work doesn't go away. It's still there and it's really important. So for the team that you have, you don't want to lose that great talent. So what's the best thing to do? Start upskilling those individuals because they're going to have to take on more tasks and responsibilities, which may require new skills. And so doing so will help you keep your best talent.
Oh, okay. What does this like kind of like go into like trying new things?
I think it absolutely does trying to go on new things because if you went from having, let's say, 500 employees down to 200, you're going to be asking these not new 200 employees, but these 200 employees to have to try and do new things, whether it's leveraging AI to get things done more efficiently or picking up roles and responsibilities that maybe they're uncomfortable with. So I think learning and talent development, I really gives people the opportunity to adapt, learn, and grow.
Sorry. Um, so like trying new things and like learning, like that's like a learn it all culture. But like what I want to know is like what is like learn it all culture and like how is it like different from what you call a know it all culture?
So let's use an example that you're probably familiar with. So if I tell my 3-year-old son, Wally, hey, Wally, it's time to go to bed, he says, no, Dad, it's not. He thinks he's got it all figured out. He has all the answers. And you see a lot of leaders like that out there as well, who they're not open to change, they're not open to ideas, and they're kind of stagnant in what they do. You know, they kind of roll their eyes at you when you ask them a question. The opposite of that is a learn it all culture. People who come in, Lucy, and they're open minded. And, you know, Wally might be, well, Dad, why do you think I should go to bed? Well, it's good for your health. So you're not cranky when you wake up in the next morning. When it comes to leadership, you know, we already talked about the importance of changing and growing. Learn it alls tend to be humble, they tend to be curious. And I think that those are two of the five really important traits out there that leaders in today's world need. Humble, curious, you know, you need to be able to have the courage to make tough decisions. And it's so important. And I'm a big believer in learn it all versus know it all.
So
I
like
even wrote a book called that.
so like lead, but like after you learn.
Lead after you learn.
Like
Yeah.
lead, but you need to learn first. You can't just think that you know something.
Well, I think you need to do both at the same time. I think it's also really, really important. And I think your dad and I spoke about this before. Learning without doing is treason. And what I mean by that is you could read a bunch of books, you could listen to a bunch of podcasts, but if all you're doing is thinking about concepts and jumping from one concept to the next and not actually applying anything, then you're really not making any progress. So I think it kind of works simultaneously. You got to have the courage to apply what you learned, and that will really help you grow too. Because people are always like, okay, so as a learn it all, are you saying just keep learning, learning, learning all the time? That's not the case. Learn and do. How am I doing, by the way, Lucy? Am I answering some of these questions?
Yeah, yeah, you're doing really good. You're doing good.
Okay, thanks.
Like, so like you're so I have a question for you. Like,
Yeah,
kind of off topic. I'm gonna like leave soon, but not off topic, but kind of off topic. But yeah, I'm just trying to
ask
find
me anything you want.
like, yeah. So, are you willing to try something new? Like,
Yes, I'm will. Let
yeah,
me give
like
you an example. Let me give you an
I'm just
example of
what no,
trying
no, I
something.
was gonna
Oh,
yeah.
okay,
Sorry.
keep going. Keep
But
going.
like, are you willing to try something new? Like, I think that like so when I like got here, like when I got to Spain, I was like, oh my God, I don't want to be here. Like this is like a huge city and like I don't like noise and I just don't like this. And like I started going to school, I'm like, okay, yeah, like we're going to an American school, so it's like America it's like people who speak English, stuff like that, not like the that like different. And
Hmm.
I was like, but there's nothing like I really like about this. And then like one of my friends started talking like they were like Spanish, but one of my friends started talking about like this thing called Eurovision. I was like, "What's that?" And they're like, "It's this sorry, it's this song contest. Like all through Europe, like every country sounds like a song, and they like
Hmm.
all like compete together. It's like really fun, and it's happening today, so I'm definitely gonna watch it. But like
Okay.
I had no idea what that was, and I was like, "Oh yeah, that does not like sound like doesn't really sound like." And they were like, just watch it, just watch it. So I turned it on. I was like, oh my God, wait, this is actually so fun. Like, so I ended up watching it and I love it. And this year I'm like super excited for it. I wanted to get tickets, but they were too expensive. And
Was
they
Taylor
didn't
Swift on it?
it's in Switzerland this year. So like really expensive. So that's why we're not going.
Your dad
But
could afford it.
yeah, anyways, that's why we're not going. But hopefully it gets like in a and like hopefully Spain wins. So one, it could be hosted in Spain next year, and two, Spain wins,
Yeah.
just because I want them to. But anyways, I'm just saying like sometimes like trying new things. Like honestly, it's like around this time of year, like when Eurovision is, it's kind of like my whole personality now. But
Good.
yeah,
That's great. Well, you'll be on it one day.
yeah, hopefully. Anyways, I'm gonna leave now. I'm gonna let my dad take over because he has more questions and I'm a very important businesswoman, so I have some other stuff to take care of. So, I have to figure out my top 10 and who I'm gonna vote for. So, just like in Eurovision, but like let's just let him take over because he needs it right now. He needs the
Okay.
confidence. So
Okay. Thanks, man.
Lucy, nice meeting you.
nice meeting you. Bye.
uh, okay. So,
Kids.
kids, I love it. So, Damon, we talked about this idea of learn it all culture and how it's different from a know it all culture. And I think it's really important for leaders as well to be leading with kind of this kind of learning mentality, growth mindset, if you will, versus the know it all. You also talk about learning as transformation and not just information. I wonder if you could talk more about that.
Yeah, it kind of goes back to the whole learning without doing is treason. You know, you
Mhm.
can keep absorbing information, but transformation happens when you put it into action, when you apply it. So I think that's really important because if you don't, then you're just stagnant and nothing changes. So you got to take the wisdom or the knowledge that you have and think about, okay, so how can I apply what I've learned to either help me personally or professionally?
There's one in the kitchen.
I originally came in here for a pen.
Um, can you talk about, I think this idea of creating a culture of curiosity and learning is so important. And it really lends to creating more of a culture of growth mindset, which really, I think, creates more creativity, more innovation. It's the ability, encourages people to try new things and not shut things down. I know this is something that not only do you work with other companies to help with, but you have your own organization that you've been working on creating this kind of culture of learning and curiosity. And I'm curious if you could talk about how you went about creating that in your own organization.
I think you go about creating it in your own organization like we did at LearnIt, where it starts with leadership. You have to model that behavior yourself. If you want people to be curious and you want them to take chances and try things, they need to feel like it's safe. And one of the best ways to do that is to do it as a leader. So if I'm going out, trying things, making mistakes, sharing those mistakes, then other people will think it's okay to do it as well. And also, being humble. So saying, hey, look, I don't have all the answers, but I've surrounded myself with great people who maybe have strengths in other areas that I don't. So tap into those people, bring them in, and listen to what they have to say, the direction they want to go on something, and giving them, delegating those responsibilities to them and highlighting them and learning and going in that direction. And I think that that's one of the things we've always done at LearnIt. I like to, Andy, I've always been one of those guys who wants to hire for aptitude and attitude over experience. Now, obviously not for all positions, whether it's a COO or something like that, but I love to bring in people who are relatively new in their career or maybe inexperienced in a particular role and give them who have the right values that we believe in at LearnIt, and giving them the opportunity to try and fail. And when you do that, I think that your organization and your culture will be fantastic.
Mm. Let's talk about the kind of the business case for this, the ROI, if you will, because so many companies talk about building a learning culture, and it's so important for people to be spending time learning. But at the same time, we have stuff to do. Everybody has stuff to do. And I talk about this, in my book and my own talks for people on like the career level, that the idea of learning, continuous learning, whether it's reading a book, listening to podcasts, et cetera, is, we all know it's important, but it's rarely ever urgent, right? Because no one's ever over your shoulder. Maybe you are at your organization, but most places you're not
Not.
like dictating to people like, you need to spend time learning today, right?
Yeah.
How do you think about both motivating people to spend time learning when it's not like the most urgent thing, and what the return on that investment, at least in time, is?
Well, first and foremost, I think in today's world, the employees, your team members, demand growth opportunities. And the cost of replacing top talent, some studies say that it's 5x the cost of replacing somebody than it would be in just investing in their learning. So right there, just giving people the opportunity to feel like that they have purpose and they belong and that your company cares about them is huge. So I mean that's table stakes. And from there, investing in learning and growing gives people the opportunity to advance in their career, but also take on new responsibilities in your organization. So yes, we all have. That's one of the biggest challenges we have with some of our customers when we first start working with them, is that they have, let's say they have middle managers who say, look, we have so much work that needs to get done, we can't dedicate this time for employees to do training. And then we try to get them in some of the classes, and then once they see the value that they're getting personally, then they're more open to allowing people to attend classes, because at the end of the day, sometimes you have to go slow to go fast. If they're more equipped with the skills that they need, they're going to be more efficient, effective, and motivated to do their work.
And this really creates that competitive advantage, right? But the interesting thing is, the challenging thing is, you talked about this a little bit when in the first question about the trends we're seeing, is that over the last couple of years, in 2024 and 25, we've seen a lot of companies doing layoffs. We've seen a lot of companies cutting back on investments in learning and development. I've certainly seen a lot of budget cuts. And I'm curious, where do you think this is going? Because it's clear to many of us that creating a learning culture, investing in development for people, is a competitive advantage. There's a big ROI, but there's a lot of companies, a lot of CEOs that don't necessarily see it that way, or not willing to make the investment. And I'm just very curious to see where it's all going to go.
Well, so am I. But you know what? We've been through this. Look, I've been at this since 1995. So there's been multiple economic downturns, whether it was the dot-com days, the 2009 recession, even COVID. And we'll get through it. We always do. And the companies who come out of it with top talent, because it's all about people at the end of the day. I think if your company is going to be successful, you have to have great people. And what I've seen, even from just talking to my friends or people who I mentor who have survived layoffs, if their company's not investing in them at all, they look at it like, are we in a sinking ship? Should I be out looking to go elsewhere? And investing in, and you could even do it on a shoestring budget. You don't have to spend a ton of money on it. But if you're investing in your people, you're showing that there's purpose and belonging, and that they're not on a sinking ship. And one of the things I think that's great about live learning, everybody learns differently, but one thing that's great about live learning is, whether it's virtual or in person, is the social engagement, Andy. You know, people are humans are always coming up with thoughts in their mind. I think we have 60,000 thoughts a day, and most of them are negative. And people might be worried about the economy. They might be worried, hey, I lost a lot of my friends are no longer working here. But if you're investing in your people and you're giving them opportunities to work together, whether in breakout rooms, especially if executives are in there, they can see, hey, you know what? Things are okay. We had to make these tough channels, these tough decisions, but it signals that you still care, because you need great people to run your business to get through these tough times. What do you
Yeah.
think?
Well, I'm I haven't been at it as long as you, right? I've been in this space for about almost 15 years,
It's a long
maybe
time
starting in
too.
2011, a pretty good amount of time, right? And I've seen things go up and down a little bit. Obviously, the major transformation and shift during COVID from in person to virtual, and now we're seeing some go back and some stay virtual. Uh, we've seen a lot of companies cut on learning, and I would imagine many of them think, hey, we can always go back and hire more talent. We can always start investing in development programs again. But we also saw what happened in 21, 22 during the so-called Great Resignation, where so many people were just kind of pent up waiting to leave. And I think there's so many people right now. First of all, there's a lot of people that are looking for jobs, but a lot of people that are unhappy in their roles in their companies because they're so burnt out, they're overworked, they're not getting the development they want or need. But they can't leave right now because the job market's not very good. And as soon as that shifts, they're going to start looking and going to companies where they feel like they have a lot more growth and development opportunities, right? And that's where we potentially see those who are truly investing in their people and have the reputation for it start really winning when times change.
Well, one thing I think you're wrong about is those people are already looking for
Mm,
jobs.
yeah,
They're already looking because they're resentful of their organizations.
yeah,
And I don't mean you're wrong. I'm just saying they're not going to wait for things to get better.
yeah.
They're resentful because they're overworked and they're burned out. And at the end of the day, great talent, they can find work elsewhere.
Mhm.
They're in high demand. Sure, I put out a job for a sales role. 2,000 people applied.
Mm,
I mean, 2,000, and most of them, Andy, still have jobs, but
mm,
they're unhappy. They're overworked. They have no learning opportunities. They see no growth in that organization, and that's one of the things right there, that they don't see any future in the organization. So they're out while they're supposed to be working. They're out looking for a new job, a company that will take them on, that will provide them those opportunities. So you might as well get ahead of the game, because yes, you can always go out and probably hire great talent. You may not keep them for very long, but it's much more expensive to retrain somebody. And think about the internal IP that goes away too. Say you've had somebody for 2 years or 5 years in your organization. They know your business. They know what works well. And especially if they're great. I mean, do you want that to walk out the door? No. So just invest a little bit, even if it's just 1% of your annual revenue, can go a long way.
hmm What are you seeing? I know LearnIt works with a lot of different organizations across different industries who are investing in learning and development for their people. What are you seeing the best organizations doing to build that culture of learning and make sure they're getting a good competitive edge and providing the right development to their people?
What I'm seeing them do is they're building intentional programs. So they're not just throwing it out there and saying, hey, figure it out yourself. They're working with not just L&D, but different business units. I loved your episode with Ash. And she said, engage. I think she works at Procore,
Yep.
engage the other business units. So because when you do that, it gets you got to look at it from a strategic level of what's best for the organization, because not just what's best for L&D. And so that's one of the things. The other thing is too, everybody learns differently. So some people want live virtual classes, some people want coaching, some people want on demand. So coming up with a holistic program that will engage people and bringing in people, I sometimes newer people to the organization, like what's important, what can we do to help you be successful? So getting buy-in early, I think is super important. And also, it's just not set it and forget it. You need to work internally with whether it's an outside provider, LearnIt, or internally, and market the program and get in front of the managers so people will be allowed to do training, share success stories, and again, highlight the executives or the CEO who are also participating in it. Because there's so much, uncertainty and negative stuff out there right now. That not to put that all aside, but let's also focus on some of the positives that we can do. And I think learning can bring people together and help motivate them and also do a better job.
Yeah, and learning in the right way. And you mentioned something else, marketing, which we don't talk about probably enough on this podcast. And we've done some episodes in the past, like with my friend Jen Collins, who I introduced you to recently, about the importance of marketing programs. And because a lot of times it comes down to perception, right? You can provide these learning programs or platforms or opportunities, but if people don't know about them, they're not taking advantage of them, then they're still not getting any value from it. So I'm curious if you've seen any best practices or things that organizations are doing once they make the investment in whether it's using LearnIt or some creating a program internally or bringing in some other learning provider to actually successfully market those programs, make sure people know about them and are taking advantage of those resources.
Yeah, I think the biggest myth is, hey, we'll just put it out there and everybody will jump in learning.
Right.
And that never happens. I don't want to say never happens, but there's so many competing priorities with time. So some of the best practices that I've seen is getting out there and meeting with the different business units. Whether if you bring in an organization with LearnIt, some of the best clients that we work with, they're partner relationships. They give us access to the leaders in the different business units, and either we're able to have one-on-one conversations or even group conversations to share with them, hey, here's what's being rolled out, giving us access to whether it's their LMS so that we can send messages, highlight some of the stories or some of the classes that we have going on. But it's constant notifications because it's almost like a flywheel. Once you get the flywheel started, once you get people going through training, and even in person or virtual, the word spreads about the value. And you hear people come back and saying, man, I didn't really want to do it because it's 2 hours of time or 90 minutes worth of time, but I got so much benefit out of it. And when they hear their peers talking about that, that's when the flywheel starts and success happens with the utilization of the programs.
Yeah, you mentioned another thing that I know is a big challenge right now for engagement in some of these things, which is that people are seemingly more, they're seemingly busier than ever, right? They're being asked to do more with less, and there's so much going on. It probably feels harder than ever for a lot of people to take time for learning. And this is, again, probably where it comes down to the culture. You creating a culture where it's not only okay, but maybe even encouraged to stop working all the time and take a couple hours or maybe even a day every now and then to dedicate to learning. I see some really great organizations doing this. Last Friday, I gave the opening keynote for a full all-employee learning day for a financial services firm in the US. And they asked, the CEO kicked things off and said, hey, we're paying you to just learn today and not focus, not have meetings, not do other things, which I thought was fantastic, but that's rare. So how do we create that space and build that culture so that learning it's okay to spend time on learning?
Well, it has to be modeled at the top again. I have friends who work at organizations where they're yes man organizations where you have to agree with the CEO, because if you don't, you might lose your job. And sometimes those individuals, those CEOs, feel like people are coming into work, they should already be skilled, training is a waste of time. I mean, that's a tough situation, but most organizations aren't like that. I mean, people understand the value of continuing to grow and evolve, but it's just getting past that mindset of that there's so much work to do. And if you just do carve out a little bit of time, you can become much more efficient and better and do more with less. So it's just, I think a lot of it's trial and error, and just, if you have an L&D or an HR team that's heading up it, it's just getting in front and keep championing learning and getting some of the executives involved again.
Mm. Okay, so tell me about your organization, LearnIt. How has it evolved over the years, and how do you approach learning today in 2025 to make sure that you are addressing the biggest needs and helping organizations develop the most valuable skills of the future?
I mean, back in the day, we were teaching in-person Excel classes with 200-page manuals. People would come to San Francisco, and all the software would be loaded on the computers. Fast forward 25 years, everything's cloud-based. Excel training, we still do that, but it makes up 15% of our business. Typically, what we do is, we want to keep a pulse on what are the challenges and goals that our customers have, not only for today, but where they want to go in the future. And we're seeing things like, hey, we're struggling with communication, or there's too many, silos. So how do we break down the silos? Or people are uncomfortable speaking up. So we do our best to develop training and content around what's solving today's problems, challenges, and in the future. And of course, AI. Everything is around AI, and a lot of organizations are still really hesitant when it comes to it. So we're doing a lot of work these days on how to help organizations and individuals within the organizations go through that mind shift of how AI isn't gonna take over your job, but how you can leverage AI to be better personally and professionally, save time on the work you're doing so you could focus on learning, growing, but also working on higher level tasks. So I think that's how we're evolving. Of course, we do a lot of live training, but we're also in the process of building AI habit bots and supplemental content. Because Andy, you know as well as I do, you can't go through a 1-day workshop and then go from being lacking in emotional intelligence to being highly emotionally intelligent. You
Right.
need you need accountability, and you need practice in any of those skills.
Yeah. What was the mix for you? I know you offer live facilitated programs. What was the mix before the pandemic? I never asked you this before, and I was just curious of in-person versus virtual, and what does it look like today?
Great question. I would say prior to COVID, it was about, for soft skills, human skills.
Yeah.
Let's focus on that. I would say it was about 70% in person, 30% virtual. And quite frankly, when COVID hit and everything shut down, like a lot of organizations, learning L&D organizations, we were concerned if we would even survive, because we were unsure if a lot of our clients were unsure if they could learn communication skills, having difficult conversations virtually. And a lot of them wanted to wait it out until COVID ended.
I remember that.
And then they realized, hey, look, not only is this not going to end, but we need some social engagement, like I talked about. We started doing more trainings, and people are like, hey, this actually works. So to answer your question, I would say now it's about 80-20 virtual. So that 80% of the work we do is virtual, 20% in person, and sometimes organizations do it hybrid. I'm fine either way. I like the in-person classes and seeing people in person, but the virtual is nice because you could hop on, and a lot of times you have these executives that you never have access to joining these classes and working with you, and you get to learn from them, and it's a great opportunity to network internally as well.
And your sessions, open enrollment, where they're mixed from different organizations, or you do dedicated classes for one organization at a time?
We do both. I would say 70% of our business is private. So it's just people from your organization. And that's great, of course. The 30% are open enrollment, which I also think is really cool, because you get to sit in and meet and network with people from other organizations who you'll see have similar challenges. And I think a lot of times, quite frankly, you learn as much if you have a great facilitator. you learn as much from the other participants as you do from the facilitator themselves, because they open up and create a space where people can talk and communicate, and they can share the challenges they have. And sometimes it's nice to have somebody who's in retail and somebody who's in government and another person who's in life sciences all experiencing the same kind of things, and see how they handle it from a different perspective. And it helps you open up your network and meet new people, connect with them on LinkedIn. So I think there's a lot of value in the open enrollment types of
I agree. I'm always surprised
sessions.
I agree. I'm always surprised there's not more of that out there. And I'm curious why you think a lot of organizations, if they're hesitant, and why they might be hesitant to send people to, we'll say, a mixed organization type class versus wanting to keep the classes only for people in their own organization.
I think it's maybe stuck in the old mindset of this is a better way to learn. So only with our own organization. Now, I do see the value of the private sessions where you're very specific. We could tailor the session so we could use case studies around, if you're in retail, we could use retail case studies
Right.
where you might say to yourself, well, a manufacturing case study doesn't really make sense. It kind of does for these open enrollment classes. You can just apply what you're learning
Right.
towards a specific. But I think that's why organizations tend to prefer the private sessions, is because you can really tailor it more to their specific needs in
Yeah,
their
you can
industry.
talk more openly about the things that are going on in the organization. You don't have to worry about potentially saying anything that you're not supposed to or anything like that. I think there's a lot of benefits to that. Before we finish, David, anything else you're seeing out there in the learning and development, talent development landscape, trends, challenges that you think are worth mentioning for our listeners in talent development, or just trying to keep up with everything that's going on?
Well, one is you just got to hang in there.
Mm,
It's tough, but talent development's never going to go away. Organizations are all about their people, and they need to keep supporting and creating career opportunities and roadmaps for growth for their team members and themselves. And again, I think a lot of it goes back to AI again. I'm going to ATD next week. I don't know when this episode's coming out, so it'll probably already happened. But
yeah,
I'm sure 85% of the vendors will be AI related vendors.
right.
And most of them right now, Andy, probably doesn't work. A lot of, they're trying things won't work. But fast forward a year from now, and I think this is very important for talent development,
Mm.
it will work. As more people get involved and are using AI, the learning will evolve, and those AI tools will work. And I think they're going to mesh really well with the live and also on demand. So start thinking about what the future is going to look like 2 years from now when it comes to talent development. I think that will give you a head start over other individuals who are just focused so much right now on what's going on in today's climate.
Awesome. Well, Damon, thank you so much for coming back on and sharing everything you have going on, what you've learned, and what you're seeing out there in the talent space. I appreciate it. As I mentioned in the introduction, LearnIt is a sponsor of our podcast this year, which I greatly appreciate the support. I appreciate the partnership. And you do have a special offer for people that want to go sign up for a team pass to check out LearnIt's offering some of those open enrollment courses, right? They can go find it at learnit.com/Andy, A-N-D-Y, my name. Can you talk about what that team pass looks like and what's available to people?
Yeah, the T Pass is basically it's a unlimited subscription to live virtual classes. So, it, for instance, if you have no budget for training right now, take advantage of it, because this is an opportunity to train up to 20 of your team members for 6 months even of learning opportunities. So take advantage of that. I think it's a great opportunity to get people in, keep them motivated, stop worrying about what's going on, and really upskill. So I highly recommend going in and taking advantage of it. I know for the organizations who have, it's been great success.
I love that. Obviously, you want people to go in and love it, and organizations to sign up to continue working with you. But very generous to offer that, hey, even if you just need to provide some development for a couple months, go check it out. Give LearnIt a call or sign up for a call with LearnIt. Again, that's at learnit.com/Andy, A-N-D-Y. And all the information is right there about the team pass, as well as you have an individual pass where people can sign up for their own learning as well. Damon, thank you again for being here. I appreciate the partnership our friendship. I'm excited to hear what comes out of you going to ATD, which will have happened by the time this comes out, and to keeping in touch and talking more in the future.
Thanks, Andy. I really appreciate the opportunity. And yeah, of course, I want people to sign up and do more classes in the future. But most importantly, I just want to help people. So take advantage of that offer.